What is consciousness? The live stream of consciousness is on a quest to unravel the mystery of existence. Every episode, we ask the fundamental question that has captivated human minds for centuries. Is consciousness merely a product of our brains, or does it connect us to something greater? Explore the very fabric of our thoughts. Don't miss a moment. Expand your awareness and tap into the boundless potential that resides within you. Welcome to the live stream of consciousness.
Hello, and indeed, welcome to the live stream of consciousness. Good old Jesse Blaze, still here in spirit, providing us with that awesome VO for the intro. I love it. Welcome. It's Thursday again. It's July 6th. It's the live stream of consciousness. It's Michael's in, all of the regular stuff for the people who've been here before, and that's new information for you guys who are just coming across the show. I appreciate you being here. I really do. And I'm excited for tonight for many reasons. I get to reconnect with an old friend of mine who I worked with in the past, who I respect very, very much. Those conversations are always amazing and engaging. And I'm going to, I don't really know how to introduce him. He's so wonderful. And he's an actor, a writer, a director, so multi-talented in the whole movie side of things. And he's been doing it for a long time. And so I found this, and I wanted to just play this briefly and introduce you guys. This is actually the creation of Mr. Melk. I am not associated with Norway or Mr. Melk in any way. He's not sponsoring the show, but this is part of the deal. I want you guys to enjoy the creation of Mr. Melk.
Vi I Tine skulle finne en passende talsperson for Tine-melk, startet vi med en gjennomsnittsnordmann.
En sterk en da, selvfølgelig. Ja, det var kanskje litt I overkant.
Ja. Sånn ja.
Ja.
Og så må han være intelligent.
Ja, eller kjekk.
Og macho. Som en sånn viking, utfarertrang og eventyrlyst.
Men velstelt.
Ja, ok. Men da må han ha sånn tøff Hollywood-stemme.
Yes. Hello, everybody.
Han må jo snakke norsk.
Hallo, alle sammen.
Hallo.
Da trenger vi bare litt norsk natur.
Ja, kjør på.
Det smart å leve sunt. Tine-melk naturlig rik på kjempebra protein som bidrar til å styrke og fornye musklene. Smaker godt.
Og så kaller vi han Mr. Melk.
Ja.
Og så lar vi han være født med ski på beina.
Det perfekt.
I had to play.
Okay,
go. I didn't want to play that one yet. Whoops. Technical difficulties. I had to play that because to me it's I know for my guest it was a long time ago, but I still feel like that holds up. It was kind of ahead of its time, the whole style of that commercial, the way there was like this kind of transforming person, and then all of a sudden the curtain goes and he's on a mountain. I just thought it was great. So here's my introduction. Lukas Hassel is an actor, a director, a screenwriter, and many more things. He's going to tell you all about what he is. But he was such a kind, amazing, unforgettable soul that as I was doing the show and kind of going through my mind of who I wanted on the show, Lukas Hassel came up and he said yes. So I'm excited, and I'm going to welcome him to the show right now. Welcome to the live stream of consciousness, Mr. Lukas Hassel.
Hey, after that introduction, no pressure.
You are an amazing person, and I don't think you're even going to need to try to live up to it, because that's just who you are, right? That's the wonder of just being who you are.
All we can do is our best, right?
Exactly. So I want to talk about Mr. Melk for sure, and I want to talk about all of that stuff. But I told you earlier, there's a business we got to take care of here on the live stream of consciousness. I love to talk about things like consciousness and what is consciousness. So that is always the first question that I ask, because all of the answers that I've gotten are correct, and they kind of all combine to make this big, ever-growing definition of what it is. And that question is, what is consciousness, Lukas Hassel? What is consciousness?
Wow. You're setting the bar relatively high already. I think consciousness to me is being aware, understanding your small place in the grand scheme of things. It's gratitude. It's a being aware of what you should be grateful for. It's trying not to be anywhere else than in the moment, relatively speaking. That's being conscious to me. It's being conscious about the people around you, about your own state of being, and then sort of the grand scheme of things, which to me doesn't necessarily mean any organized religion, but it means being aware of your speck in the big universe.
Awesome. Perfect. I love it. Right. So also what's so great about that question is you hear that question, and I see most of my guests who haven't seen the show are like, holy shit, how am I going to answer that? But I think the answer comes to you because that's what the answer is, right? The answer is being in that moment, being aware of what's happening in that moment. And you're like, oh, wait, I'm right here. I'm with this. And
that's right.
That was perfect. That was
I think in the speed of our world and existence today, it's very easy to fall into traps where you take people or things for granted. And I think the main thing one can be is responsible and take responsibility for your actions, and then just be the best you can be.
I love it. I love it. That's perfect, and that's exactly the philosophy here at the Livestream of Consciousness all the time. So welcome, and I hope you enjoy your stay.
No, I'm sure I will.
Yes. So there's only one more question that kind of sometimes leads into the rest of the show. Sometimes we gotta get there, but and we've never really discussed spirituality, you and I. I do know you're a part of an interesting Facebook group, and I think you actually started the Facebook
I did.
group. Now that
I know what you're talking about. Yes.
Now that I looked into it, and I'm not a big proponent of organized religion myself. I am a proponent of kind of the foundations of what it's based on, right? Because it's really based on love, and being here for each other, and it's just been corrupted. So let's not even talk about that. But your beliefs, I'm imagining, are kind of a little outside the standard, religious and all of that stuff. So my question that I like to ask is there a moment or a story that you can share of when you realized that living in a three-dimensional reality as a human being isn't everything that we're taught in school? Like there's more to it, or do you believe that there's more to it?
No, that's a great question. I mean, I was brought up in Denmark, and it was a very common thing to be confirmed. For instance, Scandinavia is pretty progressive, so it's not like people take, say, religion very seriously. It's sort of a thing, and it's a cultural thing, it's traditions. And so you're confirmed, you're baptized, and you go to church at Christmas and at funerals and at weddings. But apart from that, nobody really thinks too much about it. And so I was sort of brought up in that vein of thinking, and it really took me going to acting school at Trinity College in Dublin, sort of breaking out on my own to figure out, well, my opinions don't have to be my parents' opinions and vice versa. So it's really sort of moving away to Ireland that made me realize that, I can have my own thoughts and I can have my own opinions. And I started, questioning many things around me. And I guess part of that process was figuring out that I was gay, which was a big thing. So I had that gift of not quite sort of fitting in many areas. So I had to question everything. And that involved religion and spirituality as well. And so I had to sort of forge my own path and how I felt about these things myself. And it was pretty obvious to me from early on that I didn't really buy into any of the bigger organized religions. But and I went through a phase where I called myself an atheist and so forth. And I sort of realized that I guess I'm very close to being an atheist, but I don't quite want to go there. I'm more like a very heavy agnostic, because it would also be arrogant for me to say that there is no God, right? Because I don't understand where we came from. I don't know where we're going. I don't need to know. And so all I know is I don't need to make something up for me to feel better about where I am in the world. I'm very okay with not knowing things. And so I think there's plenty of room for spirituality in all kinds of ways. And that can be, as we talked about earlier, it could be gratitude. It could be understanding there are things that we don't understand. And that to me encompasses spirituality, as opposed to coming up with man-made scriptures that says this is the way. And I clearly know that another human being made that up. And so, you know,
I think it was a Mandalorian.
Right, exactly. We have Santa Claus, we have the Tooth Fairy, we have those versions of what God is. And so if you're willing to open up the fact that God can mean love and God can mean many other things, then I'm on board. It's just the word God and religion has been so sort of bastardized over the decades and centuries that I no longer like to use even that terminology. So I think there wasn't really a particular instance that made me realize that sort of organized religion wasn't for me, but probably me coming out to myself was part of that opening of, wow, the rules are different for each person.
Yeah.
And so I can't just fall into the norm. And sometimes I feel very fortunate in that respect, that I think if you're sort of a white cis male, you're not forced to think outside of the box, because why would you? Everything around you fits perfectly in your world. And so you're not forced to go beyond yourself. And so,
right. And I think that's not necessarily a good thing.
No, I agree. That's why I say I'm fortunate that I had to go there.
And I love everything that you're saying. I do see we've got George out there. George is a new friend of mine in Hawaii who has a podcast, the True Life podcast, and we've been collaborating lately. And he's just showed up. And thank you for being here, George. I appreciate your presence.
Hello, Hawaii.
We've talked about it here at the Livestream of Consciousness. I really struggled with the word God for a long time. And I think it was the word and all of the, the personification and all of the heavy, preconceived meanings that it had, right?
Baggage,
and I couldn't use the word myself for a very long time. I would always substitute it in my mind with the universe or whatever source. I use the word source a lot of times. But I would imagine that you and you've said you kind of, it doesn't even matter what you believe in, right? But I imagine you believe in a higher power, right? Like there's something out there that we don't understand, and it's okay that we don't understand it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess when you put in words like higher power, it suggests to me that I'm lesser than, and I don't think of myself that way. It doesn't.
I love that.
So clearly I don't understand what came before the Big Bang. I don't understand infinity, right? So there are many things that me as Lukas Hassel, as a basic human, I don't understand it.
Right.
But that doesn't make me lesser. So
if
somebody created me, or if somebody made this happen, that's just what I am. So that's neither lesser nor higher. So I don't think it's a higher power. I don't think it's a lesser power. It's a power that I don't know what is, and I don't have to know what it is. And if I die and find out there's something else, great. And if I die and it's just lights out, there's nothing, well then there you go.
You really just gave me another little nugget to chew on. I love that. And I use the word higher power only because I guess to me it meant something that I don't understand. But I agree 1,000,000% with you. It's not a higher power. It's just something I don't understand. Right. And I certainly do believe that same thing. If something created me, that's what I am. I'm a part of that. That's a part of me. And so it isn't a higher power. It's just another power. Right?
Correct. And the fact of the matter is, it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter to me what that power is. I don't feel a need to worship anything I don't understand. If something made me, they made me with these capabilities. And so all I can do as myself is be grateful, be kind to others.
Perfect.
And as I said earlier, be the best that I can be and try to constantly improve. That's the only responsibility I feel I have to this universe.
Amazing. I love what you're saying so much, because oftentimes, because I do this show and because I do like to talk about these things, people think I'm so like digging for an answer and I'm looking for something, and I'm really not looking for anything. I'm actually, for me, this is almost my way of expressing gratitude, and the exact philosophy that you're expressing, that's kind of how I live my life. The same thing, like what can I bring to a situation, what can I contribute, not what can I take, and
Exactly.
what am I going to get from this? Awesome. I love it. All right, so let's steer away from the spiritual conversation, because you are such a, well, I'm sure it's going to come through anyway.
Sure.
Because you're very spiritual, very grateful human. I see Jessica Kalushin out there. I see Carolyn out there who wants to speak of God. Carolyn, more of a good and evil power. Is there a good and evil power? That, that might work with the conversation. What do you think about that?
Well,
Good
again, in terms of like a power out there that's good or evil, it doesn't really affect my daily life, because I judge from what's around me. I see what's around me, the people I interact with, and whether there is some benevolent or insidious power behind that controlling the pawns, that doesn't affect me, because I don't know that for sure. So all I can do is respond to what's in front of me,
right,
and be present.
Right, the individual person.
So I don't think of it as a good or an evil power.
I love that. That's awesome. That's really, and that's probably why you're so peaceful and calm, and grateful.
Maybe.
Well, I think it probably contributes to it for sure. I love what you're saying. And look who's out there. We got Steve Sage out there saying hello.
Hey, Steve, how are you?
And Jilly is out there too. We got a bunch of people coming to the party. Awesome.
Good.
I'm really excited to talk to you about you. So let's get to that.
Well,
stuff.
I love talking about that.
The reason is because I think there are people that you come across in life that you really respect, and you're one of those people, because when I met you, we met on an independent film set. I'm grateful for my skill set giving me the opportunity to do so many cool things, like be on a film set, see the whole. I love the whole independent film scene, because everybody on an independent film set is there because they want to be there. And where do you see that in life and in nature? You know what I mean? Like not the office, for sure.
That's true. And you're an incredible photographer. I remember that straight off. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's another thing we'll talk about, because that's one of the ways we work together.
Sure.
But it was very evident, I think, right from the start, that you took the craft of acting, and that's the first capacity that I met you when you were an actor. You took it very, very seriously, and you were really good at it. And again, I think authenticity is something that you can't really fake, and that is people respond to and are engaged by, and that was the energy exchange between you and I. I was like, wow, look at this guy in his natural habitat doing what he loves, and it was very evident. So let's take it all the way back, Mr. Milk. What we just saw. I mean, that was many, many years ago. I was doing a little research on your IMDb, and I saw the first thing I saw on there was 1997. So was Milk before that? Probably, right?
No, that was after.
Oh, it was after
that was after I got to New York. The Norwegian milk company, Tina Milk, got this concept for Mr. Milk, and they wanted him to be this American speaking in Norwegian with an American accent, whatever. And so they did a worldwide casting out of London, out of New York, and out of LA.
Wow.
And I got called in by chance, I guess, because I fit the description. And they had the casting for this character for a long time, and they just hadn't quite been able to catch it. And they never realized that I was Danish by birth. Had they known that, I would never have been cast as Mr. Milk, because they knew Mr. Milk was going to be a Norwegian sort of folk hero. Right. And Denmark and Norway have a sort of checkered past based on Vikings and who are the real Vikings and wars and Scandinavian wars and all that kind of stuff. So they thought I was American and didn't know any better. So it was only after we had shot for a while that it dawned on them. And then it had to be a secret, because their milk hero couldn't be Danish. So it was a whole thing. But they cast it in New York, and it didn't occur to them that a Scandinavian could live in New York, whatever. And,
wow.
And it was funny, because when I did the casting for it, in the end, what got me the job, which I found out later, was at the very end of my casting, we have done the usual sides and pages of dialogue and things we had to do. At the end, I made like a joke, like a strongman, like, oh, to the camera, sort of right before. It was after the casting was officially over, but the camera kept running, and I just did that. And the director said, that's the attitude we were looking for, somebody who didn't take things too seriously. And that's sort of, in many aspects, Mr. Milk turned out to be very close to me in the way I think. And Mr. Milk is like an all-embracing kind of guy. He doesn't judge anybody. Anything is sort of good with him, and he's optimistic and supportive. And they started a whole, Facebook page after that where they would have people sort of answer on Mr. Milk's behalf, and it was teenagers with acne would write in, and he would be like, "Oh, that's okay," and he was very sweet, and so I was really happy to be part of that campaign.
I love that.
Exactly. So
it's so great. I don't understand, 99% of what's being said, but it's
I know that the video you showed has a version with English subtitles. I know.
Oh, really?
Somebody did that, but no, whatever. But that was the very first one when the writers are basically talking about who Mr. Milk should be, and so they keep adjusting themselves throughout that commercial. He should be strong. No, that's too strong. He should be smart. Oh no, that's too smart. And so it's all about figuring out like how they should make him be. And yeah.
Awesome. It's such a great character, and you did so good. And how many commercials did you do?
In the end, it was a campaign that lasted like a good 4 or 5 years, I think, and we shot all over the world with that. So I'd say there's probably like 9 sort of actual commercials, but then they did a whole online thing with little dance instructions by Mr. Milk that wouldn't, strictly speaking, would be considered commercials, but they were on the Mr. Milk website. And
right.
So we just did a whole bunch of, we did stills as well, photographs, different places, and did competitions. And I'm on bath towels and table tennis balls.
I don't want to bring up a sore point. Did you get a good merchandising contract?
Listen, I can't complain. I saw
video games and like all sorts of.
Yeah. There were like, I have like various avatars and various online sort of cell phone games, and it was just a really great experience and lovely people. And as I said, money is great, but it's never what I got into this business for. Getting recognized is fun, but it's again not what I got into this business for. I got into it because I enjoy exploring different characters and different sides of myself. And so I look at money and payment and all that stuff. In this case, it was great. I'm only grateful for that, but I'm certainly, it wasn't what decided it for me.
Sure. Yeah. And I definitely want to talk about that, because there's so many other facets to your involvement with filmmaking and video making and content creation and characters and writing and all of that stuff. I have one more question, and Steve Sage just said it too, a true artist. Absolutely.
Oh, thank you, Steve.
Yeah, absolutely. One more thing I want to just ask about Mr. Milk and then move on. And I do want to share that one I started quick because it's just so great. And that is how early in your career was that, or had you been doing it for a while, or did you stumble on that pretty early?
The Mr. Milk campaign? That was, I think it came about in like 2009, I'd say. So relatively late, actually. So it was way later. I mean, I don't even go out for commercials anymore. And it was probably one of the last commercial auditions I went for. Not because I feel I'm better than it. It's just not. It's not really what I'm sort of into.
Right.
And so, I think it was like 2009, and then it went through 2014 or something. It was a good long campaign, and they still keep in touch. And, I get recognized by Norwegians all over the world still to this day. Like, I mean, Norwegians are like, cool. Oh my God, is that Mr. Milk with a beard?
That's so cool.
And so they're always sort of toying with the idea of bringing him back at some point. But of course, now I won't have the 6-pack, which I barely had then, trust me, but I definitely don't have it now.
But now you look more like that most interesting man in the world.
Exactly. The Dusty guess.
So that's who Mr. Milk became.
I guess,
That's kind of cool. I think that. So let me share this real quick, just for my audience to see it, and then we'll talk some more.
Okay.
Here's the second.
Okej, kamera går. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
Hallå
7,
allesammans.
8.
Det är gott att ha kroppskontroll med en stram magemuskel. Då må du träna lite grann. Och så spisa och dricka rätt. Tina Melk är naturlig rik i Tinemelk är naturligt rik i protein som bidrar till att styrka och förnya musklerna dina. Smakar gott.
I love that connection music. So cool.
Movie magic. But that was actually a pretty hard one to shoot because I had to speak and sort of contract my stomach muscles, and of course they added the ping pong balls in After Effects.
You really
it was
I was going to ask how long
no,
you
no,
practiced.
no.
How long did you
They would
practice?
just have stuck on my stomach, just like boom. That's what would have happened. But yeah, but it was actually quite hard to shoot, to sit still, but still just because I'm not a belly dancer, but it felt like I had to be for that
Right.
commercial. But yeah. So but there are other ones later. There's one where I walk on ceilings and stuff, and that was shot in a whole huge
Oh, that's
construction
right.
they
I
built.
did see that one.
Well, they
that
built
one.
this construction. They put me in, and then I had to walk around as it spun.
Right. That was really popular for a while in like commercials and filmmaking. They were someone did it once, and everyone's like, "Oh, let's do that."
Exactly. But that was a big production for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So let's talk about this amazing career that you've had. As far as, let's stick with acting for a little bit, because I definitely want to get into the directing and stuff. And there's actually, I think one of the things that really drew me into like saying, I like this guy, I want to be friends with him, was your Into the Dark. Which was something that you wrote, you did everything in that.
Yes.
They acted in it and everything, and that's just, there's so much to unpack in that project itself. But like I said, you started in 1997, or at least that's when your IMDb starts.
Yep.
And I mean, that's 26 years ago.
I know, that's nuts.
That's an impressive career to be doing what you're doing, I think. No?
Well, again, I think you have to, as an actor, pretty quickly you learn to not measure success by fame or fortune, really, right? So you have to sort of define your own level of success, because it's a tough business, and not everyone becomes Tom Cruise or becomes Spader on TV or whatever. You sort of have to forge your own sort of career and what you're happy with and what you're not happy with. And so I think I measure success slightly differently, and as many artists I think do in this field. That success for me is feeling fulfilled and feeling like I'm doing stuff that matters to me. And so when you say a long successful career, I mean, to me it is, but I'm sure to any sort of outsider that'd be like, well, I barely know who he is, how successful can it be? And that's fair, So it's like, I feel I've done really well in what I've set out to do, and there's still hopefully more to come, but I'm certainly happy with the trajectory. I don't look back on any of that. I wish I could have done more. Or
as not you, I also feel that you've had a successful career. You know what I mean? And I
appreciate it.
Similarly, I mean, I'm not judging it by how much money or fame you have, but I'm looking at your IMDb. You were every year you had at least one project. You were consistently doing what you love to do, which is, again, that's the dream, right? Everybody just wants to do what they love to do.
Absolutely. And I think I got pretty busy from my 40s onwards. And that's one of the weird things about male actors, is that I think statistically you could be busy in your 20s because you're sort of that young hot thing out of college, and you can be the fiance and you can be all kinds of those things. And then when you hit your 30s, you're too old to be that young thing right out of college, or being that young fiance or whatever, but you're too young to be that person with gravitas, the boss or the evil guy, the villain. And so suddenly when I hit 40s, I got sort of my career back, and that's been sort of it's been going up since my early 40s. I feel like I'm getting busier and busier. And so I'm just really grateful for all the adventures that come that way. But a lot of it is what you put out there as well. And you mentioned Into the Dark, and I'm happy to talk about that whenever you want, later or whatever. But I can put a lot of red threads back to that film. Just getting that made and getting that out there and it being so successful brought me work that I might not have gotten otherwise. And that was really self-propelled. So if there's a lesson to take away from this, other than what is consciousness, it's that you can make your own fate in many ways,
just by doing what you love and just being yourself. You know what, we could actually talk about Into the Dark, because I think that's a great thing, the great branch to talk about everything, right? So the thing, Into the Dark is a short film. Why don't I tried to explain it to somebody, and I didn't want to give it away in case they wanted to watch it. Can you give us a synopsis about?
Well, I mean, the brief log line is it's two men strapped in back to back in a capsule heading to Earth from the moon. And then the film really is sort of what you figure out from there, and sort of it takes on sort of the broader purpose of life potentially, and certain values about social norms.
And it actually, I think it was probably relevant when you made it, but it's like it's definitely stays relevant as far as certain aspects of what you're talking about, entertainment and media, and
absolutely, it's
know
very
what I
much
mean?
about exactly. So everybody has to check it out. It's on Amazon Prime and other sort of best of sci-fi DVDs and stuff out there. So
yeah, if you can
DVDs, who even watch that anymore? But it's on streaming services here and there.
You know what? And I meant to ask you when we were pre-showing if you had a website. I looked at your IMDb and all this stuff, and I didn't look at your website. Do you
That's
have
okay. Yeah, I have a LukasHassel.com, and then I'm on Instagram. Is probably the best way to follow what I'm doing, because I keep up with that. But
okay,
I got off Twitter a while back. Yeah.
I'm gonna just put that in the bottom. So
sure, thank you. Absolutely, check it out.
And there we go, LukasHassel.com. So you know how to spell it, and you can find everything there. So Into the Dark. It was a short film. Again, this is kind of the culmination of all of the things that I see the passion in storytelling come from you. So you wrote this story. You were the actor. You directed it. You did everything. But was it done for a specific film challenge, or was the challenge created by yourself?
It was just a challenge created for myself. I started being on sets more and more where I would question parts of the script, or I'd be like, why are they putting the camera over there? Or I don't agree with that decision by the director. And so I started realizing that I had my own voice more than just being a pawn in somebody else's hands, which sometimes can be liberating. And in the right hands, it's fantastic to work with these visionary writers or directors, but sometimes that's not always the case. And so I felt, as an actor, I give my power away to everybody else all the time, right? I walk into a casting office, I do my thing, and then I cross my fingers and hope I got the part, and it's not in my control. And so writing was sort of the first attempt at taking some of that power back. And so I stumbled on this particular idea that had to do with social media and what people put value on these days. And I thought, what genre suits that the best? And I thought, well, sci-fi, you can make your own rules more or less, because depending on when you set it, things can be different. And it suited this thing very well. And then my good friend, Henry B. Lee, who's a DP, is someone I really trusted, and I had done some work on some of his films before, and I knew that he would be able to sort of help me. So he and I basically built this capsule, this crazy project in my 5th floor walk-up apartment in Manhattan, and in your
apartment?
In my apartment.
Wow.
Schlepped it back and forth, and he could solder lights into the capsule, all that stuff that I couldn't do. And we were both dumbasses when it came to sawing plywood and whatever. But in the end, it ended up looking exactly the way I had in mind and designed. And then, the luxury of shooting in your own apartment is that you have time. And so, if you don't have a bunch of money, then if you can have time, and we shot this 13 minutes short over 9 days, which if I had paid a studio or something like that, it would have afforded maybe 2 days or 3 days. And so instead I ended up with a bunch of options in editing. And so I just learned so much from doing Into the Dark. I color corrected it, edited myself, whatever. And at that time, Apple had this thing that if you bought a laptop with them, you could get these free one-on-one sessions with their experts.
Oh, nice.
I don't know if you remember that, but that
I do remember that.
Yeah, it was like 10 years ago or something, whatever. They stopped it now.
Probably before they started calling them geniuses, right?
Right. Yeah, you get these one-on-one sessions. And so anytime I came up against something on my laptop, editing or something I didn't understand with Final Cut 7, I think it was back then, I would just book a one-on-one session with Apple and go down and say, listen, I'm doing this film. How do I do this? And they'd be like thrilled. I wasn't just trying to figure out how to use my email. So they were super helpful. And I think I thanked them in the credits. And so with a small team, myself and essentially Henry B. Lee and the staff at Apple, I put this film together, and I had no idea sometimes if it was going to be any good, or it becomes so close to you that you can no longer get perspective on it. And then it ended up, I think, playing in over like 100 festivals, because once it started getting in and doing well, I'm like, well, I may as well keep submitting. If it didn't get into anywhere, I would have stopped wasting my money. But so I really used that to get familiar with the film festival circuit, and I traveled around with it, because I think if you're in it, it's a sort of a trick way of getting to know directors well, because usually as an actor, when you meet directors, your status is off because they can give you work. So the status as an actor is your low status and they have high status, and it doesn't make for a very easy conversation. But in this case, because I was also an actor and director and writer of it, they saw the film and saw me as an equal. So I sort of got behind their defensive facades in a surprising way, and it gave me a lot of work from that.
It's a great business card. I mean, it really is. It says so much. It shows all your talents. And Tim, who is been a listener of the show since day one, is in Brazil. Actually says I've seen it. So
really?
there you go. There you go, Mister. I'm not famous.
All right. Well, there you go. I appreciate it, Tim. I hope you liked it. It's definitely a love child of mine. I still consider that the most sort of.
It's really an impressive piece.
My work.
Yeah, it's really impressive. And again, I think the reason I wanted to ask you about the challenge is because I feel like when I saw it immediately, again, knowing what a film set is like, knowing what a production is like, I was like, wow, he wrote a story that he could film in one place, tell the story totally effectively. Like it didn't hinder anything about telling the story. Do everything, I mean, obviously you had a team, Henry helped you with
big time,
stuff.
But we were a very small team. It's fair to say, a very small team.
It met a great challenge to create a piece without a lot of resources, and a lot of space and a lot of which is really beautiful. So again, I recommend Tim Says. I loved it.
Oh my God, thank you, Sam. That's awesome.
Lori's out there, hasn't tuned in a while. Good to see you back, Lori. I loved Into the Dark, and again, I think when I met you, it was like independent films, but then as the years went by, I kind of like started hearing, oh, Lucas was on Blue Bloods, and I know the most recent was The Blacklist, which I personally don't watch television, so I didn't see the series. I did check out a bunch of your clips just because I love watching you do your thing, but I don't know the whole story. I know you were an assassin and all of these things, but really amazing to see from Mr. Melk, Mr. Holcomb, representing
pretty much two ends of the spectrum, from Mr. Milk to Van Dyke on The Blacklist. True.
Amazing. Fill me in. Tell me what you want to tell me about your career. Like, I mean, I guess I have a ton of questions for you, but I feel like I want you to be able to hit the things that you want to talk about.
No, I think you should just hit me with whatever questions. But it is interesting. I will say this, sort of in the spirit of you and I meeting on independent film, and then me now doing more network TV and so forth. I mean, there's a massive difference, and I think there's a massive difference between those two things, independent film and, say, network TV. And I think one of the things that keep me satisfied in the business that I do is doing both, right? Because independent film is very liberating. I mean, you're certainly not doing it for the money most of the time. So it has to be collaborative. Otherwise, it's not worth it for me. So I love working with intelligent, artistic, visionary people in independent film. And it's not about the money. It's about the project and the people I work with. Yeah. Where on TV is not necessarily as collaborative, because you have to hit your marks, and there's a time pressure and there is a money pressure, and it's moving, it's go, go, go. So it's not necessarily as artistically satisfying as independent film, but of course it's super professional. It's well paid. It's great exposure. So I don't knock either, but I'm grateful for both.
Of course. Awesome. That's and amazing at both as well. So actually I do have something, a little direction that we could go, which I totally forgot about, but that was you and me meeting. We met on an independent film set through a producer friend of ours. And that led to, I was working at the time on my Women of Armageddon calendars. And I was putting them out. I think I started in 2012 when the world was supposed to end, and then 2013, and then it was about 2015 when we met. And the previous year and 2013, I started to hear people saying, "Hey, where's the Men of Armageddon calendar?" So I decided to do a Men of Armageddon calendar, and the producer that we were working with said, "I have a perfect person to do that for you."
Equal opportunity, right?
And you ended up making the cover of the calendar, and here it is.
Oh my God!
The Men of Armageddon 2015 post-apocalyptic calendar, and it was so much fun working with you. I mean,
it was a lot of fun to shoot. We had a good time.
I think it was like right under the bridge. It was like we found this abandoned little park building, and we went inside, and it was a lot of fun.
It definitely was. You put out some great work there.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And then I think I found a couple of alternate images from that same session that were never released. So there's some exclusive stuff.
I've never seen that. Yeah, that's hilarious.
Yeah,
look at that.
Look
Belt,
at that
gun
attitude.
belt.
That's,
Yeah, exactly. That's hilarious.
Totally. And then the last one here is I think that was a contender for the cover, but it was, I don't know.
That's hilarious.
I don't know why I chose the one I did at the time, but
wow.
This was so much. This was so much fun.
It's a rough guy who takes good care of his beard. Apparently,
exactly.
It's Farrah Fawcett wings.
That was really the kind of the satire idea of the women of Armageddon. Was like, oh, what happens when the world ends? Do we still get the Sports Illustrated calendars? And it was a mashup of Mad Max meets Victoria's Secret kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. That's great to see that again.
And that was awesome. So
definitely.
So I have the opportunity to bring that back to life. I also can say right now that I have some of these still in my closet. So if you're interested, reach out to me, and I can.
Steve is going to buy 4. No, I'm kidding.
Hook you up. Steve is going to buy 4. That's great. I love that.
Yeah, no, it's all good. Yeah.
So you write, you direct, you act. What's your favorite of the 3?
That's a tough call. I mean, acting is obviously sort of number one identity that I've had with me for so long, but I will say I get less and less satisfaction from it necessarily. I think earlier I was grateful just to work, and the more I've done, the more I realize that I'm not always just grateful to work. I would love to work on things that are great, you know. And so I think taking charge back in writing and figuring out how, I think I'm a really good writer, maybe better than I am as an actor. And I think writing is something that I've been able to sort of perfect. And although I'm sort of an extrovert in many ways, being in this business, there's also a big part of me that enjoys sitting in my little corner in Starbucks with my earphones on and creating my own little worlds and seeing those come to life. And I can really, I think, express my point of view about the world in clever ways in my writing. But then, of course, the realization is sort of true control, true power over your artistry is you have to direct what you write. Because if you hand your scripts away to others, they can do whatever they want with it. And that's not power necessarily. That's just something else. So I think they all sort of go hand in hand. Sort of, I think I enjoy writing a lot, and I want to direct what I write. And then because I know what I can do as an actor, sometimes it's just easier to put myself in some of those roles because it's one less person to worry about.
And you know what you're looking for, yeah.
And I know what I'm looking for, and I know the characters really well because I wrote them and so forth. So to some people I hear, vanity projects and actors that put themselves in their own projects of vanity things. And I'm like, it's really because I know what I can do and I trust myself. And I think it's, as I said, one less person to worry about. So I've enjoyed putting myself in projects. That said, the most recent short film I just finished, actually today finished a picture lock on, is a film called Dummy, based on a script that I did not write. And that's the first project I've undertaken as a director on something that I did not write. So that's been super interesting and a very different experience. And then the other thing that happened is I've got my first feature script made. We filmed that down in Austin, Texas this spring.
Oh, wow.
With myself and Natasha Henstridge in the leads.
And you wrote that?
I wrote that.
And which story is that?
It's called House of Abraham, and you can actually, it's House of Abraham movie on Instagram. You can follow all the updates. We just finished the trailer. We're in post on the entire feature that's been shot. And my good friend Lynn Shay is in it as well from the Insidious franchise, and she's incredible. Natasha is amazing, back from the Species stage. You may remember her from there. And so, and my good friend Lisa Belcher directed it. We had worked together before, and she helped produce it. And we got it done. So look out for that later on this year. I think it'll be pretty cool. That's got to be exciting. And can you give us a little verbal trailer on that one? So I guess the log line is it's a woman arriving at a house in the remote areas of Texas to end her life. And when she gets to this particular venue, she realizes that there's something else that she needs to do, and so she has this secret agenda that changes this particular weekend. It takes it in a different direction.
Okay.
So it's a psychological thriller / horror, I would say.
Awesome.
It's dark.
Awesome.
It's definitely dark.
Awesome. Very exciting. That's super exciting. I know you wrote a lot of stuff. I want to jump around.
Sure.
Talk about a couple things. So you had mentioned to me earlier, and I think this is what you said gave you the opportunity to direct the Dummy. Excuse me. Is your film The Son, the Father?
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about that. What brought that about, and tell us the whole story of.
Well, so after Into the Dark, which did, as I said, really, really well, and I met so many people out in the festival circuit, made me like a little mini expert in festivals and how they're run and which ones work and which ones do work less great. I was just sort of thinking about what should my next step be, and I still felt like I had a lot to learn from short films. I think short films are amazing in the way that it's your one chance to not compromise with your vision, because it's not about making money. There's very little money to be made, actually a little more now than before, but you're still not going to make your money back pretty much on short films. But it is your chance not to compromise. There are no producers telling you who to cast or what to do, because it's not money driven. And so I knew I needed to learn more as a director. And so I was always looking for that sort of next project. And then almost by chance, like I wrote this other script based on this notion of the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And I love that idea of people doing something meaning well, but it actually has dire consequences because they didn't think through what that initial action could be. And so I wrote The Son, the Father based on that, and sent it into Hollyshorts Film Festival, which is one of the bigger short film festivals here in the US, into their screenwriting track competition, and just forgot it really. I saw a post on some film community on Facebook from somebody saying, too bad I didn't win, but good luck to Lukas Hassel. And I was like, wait, what was that about? And I went in and I realized I had won the Hollyshorts Film Festival for Best Screenplay back in 2019, I think. And I didn't even realize. I had to go in and check, like, what do I win? A check for $100 or a subscription to Ink Tip or whatever nonsense is out there. And then I realized that they offered a production deal for the short film. And I was like, well, that can't be real. I mean, that seems pretty crazy. And then sure enough, I think 2 months later, I got a phone call from a guy, Ben Andrews, up in Seattle, who had a production company, and he had agreed with Hollyshorts to produce their winning short screenplay. And I was like, this is too good to be true. But we got a whole team going, and then we started doing casting via Skype with local Seattle actors, and they found locations, they found the crew, and I flew in 4 days before and ended up shooting The Son, the Father with a crew I'd never met before, and actors I only had met over Skype. And again, I stuck myself in it as the father in the film, and again, that did really well. It was very different to Into the Dark. It was psychological horror, I would say, and but by then I already had a bit of a network with some of the festivals. And if you get one film in, sometimes it's easier to at least get the attention of the programmers, because you can send them a quick message saying, oh, by the way, this is my new film. It doesn't mean it'll get in, but it'll mean they'll at least be aware of your film amongst the hundreds of others they get. And so The Son, the Father did almost better than Into the Dark, and traveled around with that as well a lot. And so it was just super helpful. I felt this was the first time that I worked with a much, much bigger crew, because Into the Dark was like a little, small project in my apartment, but this thing was like a crew of 30, and it was a real thing, and I had to figure out how to, maneuver that. But again, it was helpful that I know my own strengths and weaknesses really well, and I know that if I get nervous, I can get micromanagerial, and that's super not helpful on a film set, because it becomes annoying for everybody else. So I had to figure out how to sort of not be that. And so my mantra on set was always, every morning I woke up, I told myself, be present and be pleasant. That got me through that shoot.
That's good.
I just reminded myself of that all the time when I started to feel edgy about, well, the makeup person is not, why aren't they doing that? Or I was like, okay, listen, everybody's here to help out your vision. And so at least you can do is be pleasant and be present.
You know what? And I think it's interesting what you're saying, because I think that's a really important key to a happy life, is waking up and setting those intentions, especially when those specifically are the intentions, that's even better. You know what I mean? To be present and be pleasant. I have one of our listeners, Jilly, gave me this little necklace. It says, "Just show up." And I was going to say, well, you kind of took that to the next level. It's more than just showing up. You've got to kind of have this intention of being present and being pleasant. But the just show up is because I am pleasant and I am present. So all I got to do is show up, and I'm bringing that.
Right. And but I mean, but that said, I'm also, be present and be pleasant is super important, but it shouldn't be misunderstood as being sort of non-engaged in society. Or I think it's very important to have opinions about everything.
Sure.
And that shouldn't make you judgmental, but I think you have to have an opinion about everything around you. Otherwise, I feel you're sort of missing your duty as a human being on Earth. You can't just let things slide. You may not have to be a warrior out there fighting this cause or that cause, but you need to have an opinion about it, because silence is complicity.
Right.
And so I'm a big fan of people having opinions about everything.
Yes, I agree with that. I'm thinking in my head whether or not I should bring up your Facebook group or not.
You might get some people on here that would not like that, but listen, it's all good.
It's all good. I feel like it's you expressing yourself. I actually, I have opinions about that Facebook group myself, but
sure,
but I know who you are, and I love you so much that I'm like, I'm not going to let it anger me and be like, well, I don't agree with that, and you're doing the wrong thing. You're doing. To me, I look at it and I'm like, wow, I don't agree with that, but I agree with doing what makes you feel right.
No, I appreciate the openness. And
absolutely.
That Facebook page is not about dissing people. It's not about making people feel lesser about themselves, but it's, again, something that I feel is important to speak up about. And whether I find something insidious or non-benevolent, and other people disagree with me, and that's absolutely fine. I wouldn't have put it out there if I was afraid of what people thought.
Right. Absolutely. No, and that's also respectable, and there's an integrity to that. And in kind of a similar story about being able to disagree but still love each other is I had Flat Earth Dave on my show.
Oh, wow.
And I was interested in having Flat Earth Dave on my show. My audience knows this. They're probably bored of me telling the story, but I'm telling you because you haven't heard this, because I saw that he was facing a lot of, people calling him a moron and whatever. And then there's people who agree with him. So there's this contingency on each side. But I was just like, I want to find my common ground with him. And I knew off the bat what that was, and I had him on the show. And the common ground for me was, we're not necessarily being told the whole truth, right? And regardless, I'm not saying that the Earth is flat. I don't necessarily subscribe to that. However, I do subscribe to the idea that it could be, and maybe we're not being told the whole truth. And I'm not even going to get into flat Earth. Let's not even get into it. But again, the idea of the common ground, right? Like, let's celebrate the common ground, and we can also celebrate the differences. I can be like, cool, you want to go off and have a flat Earth app and do your thing? More power to you. Is it possible that it could get dangerous? Maybe. I think we're living in a very, very interesting time. You said something that's very important to me way early on, and that was being accountable for what you do, what your thoughts are, how you treat other people, all of that stuff. And I think that's getting lost. The cool thing about that, or the upside to that, is that as much as it's getting lost, is that it's getting found. And what I mean by that is, I hang out in different communities, and there's a spiritual community of people who are awakening. And I hate the buzzwords and the terminology, spiritual journey, all of these things. It's just life. To me, it's just life. It's just learning, as you go along, what feels right, what doesn't feel right. And this kind of goes back to Carolyn's question of good and evil. It's like, to me, I always knew from a young age, when I wasn't sure about organized religion, I was sure about good and evil as far as choices, and as far as how I felt in my heart. Absolutely. And what I aligned to. I can remember, when email first came around, and then email scams came around, I was just like, how can people do this? I was
I
so
know.
upset. Like it's
I know.
so evil. And I was
Right.
like, and that was a way for me to define good and evil. Like, you know,
Right.
that's people align
No,
with
but I think you're onto the right thing about trying to find common ground. But there is, as I said before about having an opinion, I think it's also important to know what you're okay with and what you're not okay with. So, had your flat earther friend also said that you are a terrible person if you don't believe in it, or that you should go to jail if you don't believe in flat Earth, then it's not just a benevolent thing where you can go, oh, that's kind of cute and funny. It's kind of dumb, but to me, it's kind of dumb because I believe in science. So in that case, I would have looked at him and gone like, well, good for you, but clearly you're wrong. And so I have opinions about it, right? And so it's not just common ground at any cost. I think it is important to have opinions about things, and it's important for you to have a line in the sand about what you're okay with and what you're not okay with. And so there are people that I don't necessarily seek to have common ground with because their opinions are so heinous or so offensive that there is really no reason for me to find common ground with them until they find a way of handling people around them in a just or fair way. So, so it's not at all costs. There are people that I'm not necessarily willing to look for common ground with because I don't feel they deserve my common ground. And so I can be harsh as well at certain times, but it's always, I think, well considered. At least it's not a knee-jerk reaction or me just jumping to conclusions. It's a well thought process that I go through about who deserves my friendship or company and who doesn't. And that's not arrogance. It's just everybody can make that choice on their own. I don't expect anyone to take me in.
Absolutely. No, but I think again, certain things come across, at least for me, that, make me want to be a friend with you and talk to you and integrity and certain things. You said something earlier. Oh my God, my brain just farted. You said something earlier about
it'll come back to you.
Yeah, well, all of the things that you were saying about accountability and just the way you live your life is really the philosophy here at the Livestream of Consciousness, and my philosophy. Just trying to be the best person that you are.
I think
raise people up.
I think one of my sort of greatest strengths and a real gift that I'm not quite sure where that came from, perhaps my parents, is that I'm not afraid to look inward. And I think maybe that's from being an actor and a writer. I think that's where you find the greatest sort of surprising corners of life. If you're okay turning on that flashlight and looking inwards about what's not so great about yourself, or also owning what you're good at, then I think there's really nothing around you that can surprise you. And then you will have opinions about things because you're trying to improve yourselves. And so there's nothing really that I'm afraid to talk about. There are things I certainly know more about than other things, but if I'm interested enough, I'll find out more.
Sure. So I remember actually that reminded me what I was going to say. And that was, I think that, your philosophy and what you're saying about having opinion works really well for you because I think you understand it. And I think there are people who don't understand that. And for me, it was very evident that you are very cognizant of the words that you use in a conversation, and understand the energy that words and thoughts have, because you were talking about the different film festivals, and you got to know the film festivals, and you said, so there are some that are really great, and you said there are some that are not so great. And I was just like, wow, that's like, that was just a very elegant way, to express that. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, so that's definitely true, but it's also fair enough in the way that people look for different things at festivals. So it depends on what you're looking for when you go in that makes it great or not so great, right? If your intent at a festival is to go in and network and meet other crazy, like-minded, independent filmmakers or creative souls, then there are a lot of those festivals. If you're looking to go in and meet producers that'll produce your next feature, then there are a lot of festivals that are not so great because there's very few of those around, right? So it all depends on what your aspirations are and what you're expecting out of film festivals, whether it'll make them great or not so great. And then, of course, you have the ones that screen your film in a basement with a sheet moving in the wind that are really terrible. And then you just know not to apply there next time.
Right. And I think it's also, it could be a tricky industry as far as authenticity goes too. I mean, you'll find people who are there, looking for this or looking for that, without that genuine kind of intention of loving what they do. It's just like opportunists, you can say, and things like that. But I guess, again, I feel like you have a real clear understanding, and Steve Sage always saying exactly the things that I'm thinking here. Lucas is in touch with many levels of understanding. Yeah, and I think that's important. I think you kind of touched on that at the beginning. I think there is a contingency of society, and I have a lot of compassion for people who kind of don't go past this consciousness. They don't go past,
Sure.
What do I got to do today, and kind of the surface three-dimensional aspect of living. They don't go inside. They don't kind of think about who they are and how they treat other people and all of that stuff. And I think I find the people who do that, I find them to be more authentic and connect more with them.
But as I said earlier, I mean, it could come down to good or bad luck about your own circumstances. As I said, a lot of that probably came about from being a questioning young gay man, knowing I didn't quite fit in, right? So I think if you're not forced into those things, who knows if I've been straight, maybe it would have been unbearable and just full of myself and doing my own thing, and having a certain good look, and I could be a total jerk, right? That's very possible. It didn't turn out that way because I had to figure out how do other people live, and
yeah, that's well said. That makes a lot of sense. I think your challenges definitely made you the better person,
right? And so I think people with artistic instincts or people that are curious about it will ask those questions, but and it comes down to other things like career and stuff. In many ways, people think of, I know actors who think of their career as a curse almost. They sort of hate the fact that I'm compelled to do this, but I don't get any work, I don't make money, whatever. Right. But the gift really is that you from an early age knew what you wanted to do. Think about how many people don't have that passion. They take a job because it's a way of making money and it's a way of paying for their house, but they don't find that passion. And so it's both a good and a bad thing in that sense, right? You don't have that passion, but you're also not super frustrated because you don't know what you're missing either, right? So, so I think the people that are curious, they're going to find their way in asking questions about what's happening around them and come up with well-considered opinions.
Right. Steve Sage, again, out there, 100%. What and who we live through makes us who we are.
I agree.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I talk about this very often too. It's like, it's so important because that's the reason you're here. You know what I mean? Anybody who's here, the reason that they're here is to be them. They're here to kind of live out their ray of light, the way they're supposed to, and just do it. And I think what I was saying earlier was kind of alluding to, I think society kind of throws these layers on us as we're growing up. You need to be good looking, you need to have lots of money, you need this, you need that, and all of these things that are outside of ourselves. And really all we need to do is look inside of ourselves and who we are and how, like I said, I keep bringing it back to how we treat other people. I feel like that's an important thing. I feel like the other aspect besides self-love I talk about all the time, you can't really move forward until you love yourself, right? You can, and there are plenty of people who are out there moving. Maybe they're not moving forward, they're just moving around.
Sure.
You know what
That's
I mean?
True. That's true.
But I think once you love yourself, you can start to see things clearer. You can love other people. You can love situations. You can not love situations, right? You can have that opinion that you're talking about and express it
right
in a much better vibration.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot to what you're saying. So two things there. First of all, I don't necessarily feel that I have a reason for anything. I am. I don't think there's a higher purpose for my life here. I think I happen to be, and I'm trying to make the most of what that is. And then I think, loving oneself, it's also okay understanding what you don't love about yourself, because I feel if you understand what you don't love about yourself, then that's what you got to work on. So it sounds good to say once you love yourself. I don't think anybody truly can own that I just love myself. I love many parts of myself and many parts of
mhm.
what I do, but there are other parts that I'm less satisfied with, that I have to continuously work on to not be a person that I don't want to be.
That's
Right.
fair.
So,
That's
so
fair.
that's a constant source of sort of self-improvement. I don't think we ever reach that thing. It's almost like a script that I write. It becomes a very good script, but I'm also aware that they can always improve. There's always
Right,
that character that can be developed more,
You
or
know what?
that page could be cut out. And so I think that's
Right.
the same with me as a person. I'm a thing in progress. I'm a thing in motion, and that can go. I can get worse for a period of time based on whatever I go through.
Mhm.
Success, I can get into my head, and I can think I'm better than anybody else, and have to catch that and go, no, you're not. You're just equal to everybody, and
Right.
you had a good break, or vice versa. I could feel bad, and I could be like, hang on a second, it's not about money or how many shows you've done. It's about what you just did, and you're happy with that. So it's about constant sort of self-improvement and being humble enough to undertake that.
I agree 100%, and you're deconstructing a lot of the language that I use to
Yeah.
describe some of my philosophies. But
Sure.
it's great. I love what you're doing, because you're really making me think about those words that I use, and I absolutely have said that. I think self-love is very important, but I do think, like you said, the human experience is not like you're not finished ever, right? I mean,
Right.
the whole way through, you're still evolving and changing. You're finished with the human experience when you're done, and whatever's next,
Correct.
is next.
Correct. And we
but-
go through things where even though you check it in one day, you could relapse on another day, and so you have to recheck it, later on. So it's a constant ebb and flow about one's own strengths and weaknesses, and they can
Yeah.
change.
Yes, absolutely. Steve says it's more being comfortable in our own skin, and yes,
I agree.
That's
100%.
super important.
Steve is very sage.
Yes, he is.
See what I did there? Yeah, exactly.
I wouldn't. Tim says I wouldn't be where I am now without knowing what I didn't love about myself.
Exactly.
I had to fix them all, and now I have everything I never knew I wanted. And
I love that.
Tim's got such a great story. He went through such adverse medical problems. He was married to a woman who was diagnosed with, I think, 25 or 27 personalities. Who such an interesting story. Actually, like, one of these personalities was a diabetic, and that crazy physiological story that go to the doctor and like, oh my God, you've got diabetic levels of your body chemistry one minute, and the next minute you don't. Like that's really nuts.
That's fascinating.
But Tim went through a lot of stuff, and then ended up meeting the woman of his dreams in Brazil, and he just had a baby who was just happened to visit me last week. They were in the United States, and they came by, and I got to spend time with Tim and Taryn. Taryn, his son, we actually did a gender reveal for his son on the show before he was born.
Wow, wonderful. Congratulations,
Really
Tim.
cool.
Right.
Yeah, really cool. Like that guy was on my show, before he was even born.
Wow, that's
So
awesome.
It was kind of cool. But oh wow, I didn't even realize we're over an hour already. I don't want to take up too much of your time. You are so amazing to talk to, Lucas. I love,
and likewise, it's been
talking
super
to you.
fun.
Yeah, I love thinking about your work. I love looking at your work.
Appreciate it.
What we didn't even get to talk about Slapface, which I wanted to talk about.
Slapface, or yeah,
because I know Jeremiah Kipp,
sure.
and that's a local Long Island filmmaker. Maybe can you share one more story with us about Slapface? Tell us the story of Slapface, because it was short first, and right.
Well, so first of all, I mean, Jeremiah Kipp, big shout out to him. He's one of those kindred spirits, and long
Shout out to Jeremiah.
Yeah, Jeremiah. He's a visionary in many ways. A real mensch, just a lovely person who takes his craft very seriously, and is a kind soul. And I've worked with him on a number of projects. And he's just a real actor's director. Like, he understands what actors go through and what they need, and so he's sort of top shelf in terms of writer directors. And so Slapface, I was in a writing group with Jeremiah, and he came up with, he came up with this short story of Slapface. And so from the beginning, I was sort of part of reading that in the writing group. And I remember one time sort of coming down from the writing group, it was over, and I said to Jeremiah, if you ever get to make this, I would love a shot at the monster. And he was like, well, she's a woman. I'm like, you know what? It's kind of interesting to not be taken for sort of a handsome surface or whatever, trying to become a monster, regardless of gender. So if it happens, keep me in mind. And he did. And so we did the short film when he got that together. And then later on, when he paired up with a wonderful producer in LA called Mike Manning. They got the money to do the feature, and Jeremiah asked if I was interested in coming aboard as the monster yet again, and it was just an incredible experience seeing sort of Jeremiah get an opportunity to create a feature based on his own script, right? He's often a director for hire, and he does amazing work on other people's scripts, but this was his own baby. And so knowing what I had gone through with Into the Dark, I could just see how much it meant to him. And I respond well to passion. And so it was up in Fishkill. We shot the whole film, I think, over 3.5 weeks or so. And it was tough. I was in special effects makeup for pretty much the whole shoot.
Wow.
And that meant being in makeup sort of 3 hours every morning, and an hour and a half after everybody else had wrapped, I sat in makeup getting out of the latex and all that stuff. And it was definitely a challenge, but it was an incredible film and team to be part of, and I'm very proud of the final product, and it's been doing really well for him.
That's awesome.
And so I think there are talks of a sequel, but I'm going to let Jeremiah handle that when that becomes a reality.
Right. What an amazing experience, right? How many people can say they've been through that? You see it on TV all the time with actors doing these films, getting into makeup for 6 hours, you know what I mean? And that's like, you did it. And
it's true.
Again, I think, it takes a certain type of person to do that, because there's a certain amount of dedication that you need to do that kind of stuff.
No, for sure. I mean, it may sound like a lot of fun when you hear about it from the outside, but I guess it's a little bit like, being on the show of Survivor. You catch an hour episode a week, but you forget that these people live there 24/7 for weeks on end, right? Where they took the best bits and put it into 1 hour. So there were all these other bits. So being in a makeup chair for that long, and being on a set where you wait around before it's your scene or before you're needed in the special effects makeup, I mean, it's definitely not for the faint of heart. So it was a privilege, and I had a ton of fun doing it, but it was probably one of the hardest gigs I've done.
Wow. Awesome. But rewarding, right?
Absolutely. And
can you give us the lot line on that? What's the synopsis of that?
Well, I mean, it's really something for people to look up, because I don't want to do a disservice to Jeremiah's film, but it's basically about a boy who befriends a monster in the woods. Okay, that's enough to intrigue people, I think. Definitely check it out. That's awesome. I'm not sure what this comment means. Steve Sage is saying he killed Liz. Oh, well, that's on the blacklist. Oh, okay. You know what? Let's end with that. Let's talk about the blacklist, because that's the exciting, the latest excitement. So tell us about that experience. I mean, the Blacklist is a very popular television show. You had 13 episodes, right? You did of that show. That's pretty. I would say that's a recurring character. No. Yeah. That counts. Even 2 episodes, I think. Tell us a little bit about that experience, real quick. So, an amazing experience. I've done a lot of other TV shows here and there for like 1 episode, and then. I'd actually been on the Blacklist before and got killed by a Spader in season 4, I believe. And so when they got me this casting for season 8, I was like, wait a second, should I tell them that I was already on and was already killed, or should I just go ahead and do the casting and hope they never remember that or whatever? And I felt bad about that. So I did the casting, and within a few hours, it's the fastest time I think I've ever heard. They came back with an offer for the part, and in the PS it said, and we know you were on in season 4. So I was like, okay, phew, at least it's out in the open. Right. And so I think that they had me in mind. They were like, if that guy looks the same, he's sort of what we're looking for this particular character, because it happened so quickly. So I don't know if that's true. I never got confirmation, but that was sort of my guess. And so this character, Elias Van Dyke, was just sort of, I think the original offer was like 3 episodes. And then, as any of these TV shows do when they bring you on, is they ask you to be available for the whole season, because you never know. Right. And so most of the time it's just a procedure they do, and you don't expect that to happen. But then I shot 3 episodes, and then they asked me to come in for the next episode, and then the next episode. And then I was like, wait a second, this is more than that. What's happening here? And then they started giving me more to do. And nice. And I think in hindsight, I just had some fortunate things happen to me on set that made me stand out a little bit, that made the writers notice me more, because there were really sort of 5 of us that initially had sort of the same size role on the show. It was like a small supporting character, but a recurring character. And then gradually we lost some of those, and my character just got promoted a little bit. And then at some point, the writers must have decided that, okay, Van Dyke is the one who's going to take out this particular female lead, who I believe wanted off the show. And so they were figuring out a way of getting her off the show in a good way and sending her off the right way. And so that's, I'm sure, writers in a TV writer's room, it's complex to figure out how they're going to do it. And so I think at some point they decided that Van Dyke was going to be the one to take her out, so to speak. And that brought me a lot of both enemies and fans on social media, for sure. I mean, my Instagram blew up for a while, and I got both hate mail and love mail.
That's got to be
love mail from the people that didn't like her, and hate mail from the ones that loved her. And of course, I was like, it's just a show. I didn't write this or actually kill her. So it was pretty interesting. But I still get that to this day. I get people who come up to me in the airports or whatever, who see the show around the world, and some are upset and some are cool about it.
Right. And you still, it's the current look that you have now, so people.
Yeah, that's true. It's the same look, exactly. It's the same look.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Also, Lucas, it's so again, I could do this for hours, but I want to.
Yeah, likewise. But we can do it again another time. You never know.
Awesome. I will definitely have you back. I'm gonna put you in the green room and say goodbye. If you can just hang on, so we can say goodbye.
Absolutely,
that would be awesome. But before I do actually officially let you go, do you have any words of Lukas Hassel advice for my my audience?
Well, listen. The only advice is just own who you are. Take responsibility for your own actions. Be a good person. And if you're an artist or actor out there, I truly support creating your own work. Don't wait for others. Take charge of your own destiny.
Great advice.
As sort of corny as that may seem. And in general, have a look out for House of Abraham, the feature, House of Abraham movie on Instagram. Check out updates on that. But that should be out later on this year. I'm very excited about it. So
awesome.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thanks for being here. We'll have you back. Let me sign off, and I'll talk to you in just a minute.
Sounds good.
Soon. All right.
Bye, guys.
Awesome. Wow. All right, guys. Here we go. Ready? I had to breathe in before I breathed out on that one, because that was, I just couldn't stop talking, and I love him. And I also had to turn off the AC, and I am drenched right now. So I'm going to sign off. Next week, I have Raphael on my show, who is in Vienna. So it's kind of been an international theme happening. I mean, Lucas is from Denmark, and Raphael will be in Norway, so he's like, I think, a bunch of hours ahead. But he is an amazing critical thinker, mystic, all sorts of cool things. You'll meet him next week. Lily, thanks for being here. Always cheering me on. I love that you do that. So I will see you guys next week. And until then, stay cool and stay free. Talk to you later.
What is consciousness? The live stream of consciousness is on a quest to unravel the mysteries of existence. Every episode, we ask the fundamental question that has captivated human minds for centuries. Is consciousness merely a product of our brains, or does it connect us to something greater? Explore the very fabric of our thoughts